The country club. Thanks again.
He's just waiting for me.
Yeah, that they opened that one up and didn't meet code. You know? So I don't know how they're getting away with it meeting code. So what was I saying there? I just drew a blank. Yeah, so in 1995 when it closed, it was the local family picked it up, only because of this. I'm sure that it was because of the National Registry. National Registry means politics. In 1995, with prisoners in it, and then opened it up at the end of the year as a museum, and it's been going ever since. Manchunk is, I knew nothing of Manchunk. 3 years ago, all I knew was Jim Thorpe. I got my medications and stuff at Manchunk Pharmacy, but that was my my knowledge of Manchunk. But since I've been here, just the understanding of Manchunk and its importance in history, in American history, it really is amazing. Believe it or not, this little town in 1823 was the second most visited town in the country. You know, the Packer Mansion is very nice and it's all that, but the guy who really should get top billing is that little park there called Josiah White Park. Josiah White was the pioneer there. He discovered, or he was an entrepreneur in Philly, owned a wire mill, and he needed coal and fuel or whatever for his machinery. He couldn't get it. So he knew Ginter had discovered coal up here in the, right after the Revolutionary War, 1781 or something like that. So he came up here, ended up buying Ginter out, got together with a guy named Chris, opened up the Lehigh Coal Navigation Company. And so he got into making coal and selling coal and got into that business. With his call to fame and why this was such a tourist place to visit, the second most visited town, other than Niagara Falls in the 1820s, is because he invented what we call the switchback, which is better known as a roller coaster. So the idea of a roller coaster came from right here in this little town. If you go up by Manchunk Lake, you'll see right outside the lake, there's a switchback car on the rails. So you get an idea of what those cars look like. Although I've seen pictures of the actual cars that he did for tourism, they were more like coaches, that like roller coaster coaches, like they had like 4 people, like 8 could fit like 12 people. I couldn't understand. People would pay 75 cents to ride that 9 miles from all the way up here in Summit Hill, come all the way down here. Pay 75 cents, literally take their life in their hand because there was no brakes on these things. They only had like a little hand thing. That's pretty nuts. So this was Manchunk, so a very interesting history. But as far as the Molly Maguires were concerned, you're going to learn today about a guy named Frank Gallows who actually owned the railroad in the 1870s, who was a tyrant. And he could have got you to work for free, he would have. He hated the Irish, did not want the Irish to work for him. It was personal. You'll hear that story. You see the signs out there that say no Irish need apply. Although they're not the original signs, they are the original signs. Taken from by all their tools and shovels and picks and stuff from the general store at inflationary prices, sometimes 3 times the cost. Housing was the same. There was instances where they would have had to pay old money at the end of the month for a month's worth of work. So it was only a matter of time when I mentioned about the rebellion in 1840. That rebellion would happen here in the 1870s, which it did. They started blowing up some of the mines. They burned down. There were 2 homicides. One of the homicides was in the residential area. The difference being those handcuffs, these are 3x2, all handcuffed. But the mindset of father and son are basically the same. They both believed in punishment. They both believed in solitary confinement. So that will be the first thing that you'll notice when you go into the cell block. Because I knew this was an active jail until 1995. I was here about 10, 12 years before then. But I wasn't wowed until I was in there and said, wow, this was the jail until 1995. And so the infamous cell 17, Thomas Fisher, is about halfway down on the left. So you'll be able to check that out. I don't want to step on your tour guide. But there's 72 rooms and hallways in this building, 48 cells. Could have held 126 people. Never did. When it closed in 1995, there was nine inmates, 7 male, 2 female. That was one of the things that was interesting about this place. About in 1970, when this all took place, there's actually a movie that was, the last scene was done here in Maguires. And the falsehoods there was that the only cool thing about that movie for me was I actually saw outside the original wall and the barbed wire on the original wall in the grass, but what they did was they falsified the gallows. They had the gallows outside, the gallows were actually inside. The gallows were outside in Pottsville, but not here. They were actually done inside here. And the fact that Jack Cohanen, who was the head of the order, of the Ancient Order of Hibernians, who was part of that Molly Maguires, the head of those Molly Maguires, did not have a relationship with Pound. Or also the mine owner, part of the mine owners, was also the prosecutor. So that was more, there's more to tell, wasn't it? It's an interesting story. The events of 1875 and the events of the hangings that took place inside this cell block starting in 1877. At the end of this presentation, if you wouldn't mind, please exit the room, go to the left. A tour guide will take you inside the cell block for the remainder of your tour, after which you guys can take pictures. Not in a handprint, they'll explain why. Just walk around, take pictures if you like. There's a little cell that says old jail. Feel free to walk behind it. Tour guide will be more than glad to help you. Also behind me, which was the warden's office converted into a visitor's room, also the restroom. Has some interesting artifacts in there, and then you can work your way to the kitchen. Inside the kitchen, there are more artifacts. There's a visitor's book letting you know how you enjoyed the tour today and a constructive criticism. Also, there are two containers for the staff. But the main thing is enjoy your day, enjoy your stay, and mainly enjoy the tour. And I'll get you some
guys
It's not bigger than
throughout this tour,
cells would be nowadays.
Also, if the cell door is open, you guys are more than welcome and encouraged to come inside, check out yourselves, take pictures. To be completely honest with you, I've been told multiple times that everybody that's ever worked here, everyone would like you to most relax when it comes to rules about this place. Whatever you can do to keep starting to fancy, I really don't mind if you do it there, as long as we're not harming the property. In this main cell block. Most of them are pretty much all the same thing. They are all 8 by 13 and they had a maximum housing capacity of 4 inmates in a cell at a time here. When you guys are looking around, some of the cells will have 1 bed, some will have 2, and some will have 4. There are going to be 3 cells that are down here that they are very different and they are also very important to this place's operation during the time period. I'm going to start with this first cell right here along the wall. This is going to be our shower cell. It's a little icky and grimy as is, but I assure you it's where the inmates used to come to bathe once per day. 2 guards used to stand at the door of the shower cell just to make sure everybody was getting in and out when they had to. And believe it or not, 5 to 7 men would actually shower in that room, oftentimes at the same exact time. Right next to it, as it's listed beautifully on the door there, that is going to be our laundry cell. This is where they came to wash and dry the inmates, wardens, and officers on duty's clothing. 2 guards also oftentimes stood at the door of that cell just to make sure nothing was going on inside that shouldn't be. And then throughout the day sometimes, if the warden was feeling nice and generous, he would select 2 inmates in here to wash the clothes for everyone. Now why in the world would you take the time out of your day to do this? For every hour that you wash the clothes here in this jail out of the warden's own pocket, rewarded with 1 singular quarter. You got gifted 25 cents essentially for an hour's worth of work. Now before I let you guys in on that third and final cell I mentioned, I'm just going to go over topics this side of the jail, seeing as how we're already over here. I'm going to start with that one-way window up there. That there is actually the main security component of the late 1800s from when the jail was originally constructed. It was essentially one of those I can see you but you can't see me types of mirrors. The warden would oftentimes peer down from upstairs to make sure everything was in check here if any inmates were outside of their cells at the time. Right below it, you get that big beautiful brown door you guys just came through a couple minutes ago. Believe it or not, that hunting wood weighs 500 pounds total. It is 2 layers of oak wood and a layer of iron in between, and when this jail is fully operational, that very door is simply bulletproof. Personally, if you're wondering, I've never tested the fact out, I'm honestly too scared, but then right outside the giant wooden door you used to get in the building itself earlier, the door is also a little heavier than expected. It is 1,000 total pounds. Also, this tiny slot right here, this came directly from the kitchen, is where the inmates got their food every day. Here in this jail, you were fed 3 meals a day. You got breakfast, lunch, and dinner. You would come up to the slot here, tell them your name and your cell number, and they would give you a tray just like this, where you were given nothing but a bowl and a spoon here. You were not given forks and knives. They were seen as weapons at the time. When you got your food, you went right back to your cell and you ate it with your cellmates. You were also then responsible for cleaning up after yourselves once you were done with everything. If you did not, you came back to this slot here. Dirty tray, dirty utensils, unfinished food, or anything of the sort. Believe it or not, the entire cell block, everybody that was here at the time, would actually go the rest of that day without seeing another bite of food here. So, with all of that in mind, we're going to transition to that side of the building real quick. We're going to hold the most important cell of this jail, by far. It's going to be cell number 17, home of the infamous Handprint you probably heard about 7 times over. So what exactly is this handprint here? Why is it there, and why is it so important in the jail? The handprint in cell number 17 belongs to one of the Maguires who actually placed it there as a testament of his innocence before his eventual death here in this jail. The name of this man at the time was Thomas P. Fisher, and this same man would be executed in this very location on March 28, 1878, as he would be accused of the murder of one of the leading coal bosses in the Pennsylvania coal mining industry. So Fisher, at the time, knowing he was innocent, took his left hand. He swept it in the disgustingly dirty floor of his cell, hopped up on his cell bed, smacked it on the wall. He said, "This is a testament of my innocence, and my handprint is going to remain here for the rest of eternity." A couple of days later, as I said before, he was killed here in this jail, and ever since that day, when the warden came downstairs checking all the cells here, he started to notice the ominous pattern of the same hand on the same wall time and time again. Eventually, after about a week or so, and it still had not faded away, he first came in contact with people to come in and wash out the walls for him day in, day out. No matter how long they washed these walls for, though, and no matter how hard they attempted, he kept coming back downstairs, and he kept seeing the same hand on the same wall in the same cell. He then hired painters, numerous colors, numerous brushes, and numerous sizes. Yet no matter what color they used, and no matter how thick that brush was, he kept coming back downstairs and was surely disappointed. He saw the same hand on the same wall in the same cell time and time again. So then for years and years, they had numerous efforts to try and get rid of this thing. Anything you guys can think of right now, I assure you they have more than likely tried dozens of times here. Yet despite their best efforts time and time again, it has all proved meaningless. And over the course of 143 years here in this jail, that same handprint has remained on the same wall in the same cell through the course of time.
When's the last time they tried to wipe it off?
The last time known was 1995 when the jail shut down. Ever since then, when the Maguire family bought it. Real quick, I'm just going to tell you guys the story of one man, believe it or not. He actually tried to escape the jail through a window this size here. So, back in the 1970s, one unfortunate man was sent to this jail for 180 days. He was sent here, believe it or not, he did not pay his overdue parking tickets at the time. He thought that was absolutely outrageous. He thought that was way too much time in here, so with the help of his two cellmates, he came up with a plan to escape the jail. First thing the man did was go on an extremely strict diet. He only ate when it was absolutely necessary for him to. In return, the man lost an unhealthy amount of weight here at the time. Alright, well, this is awkward. So we're going to head downstairs, I'm going to put the story on hold, I'll tell you guys. Alright, so first things first, I'm going to give you a solemn apology to past 5 minutes. Don't know what the heck happened, I'll be honest, but real quick, I'm going to wrap up with the story. We're going to continue with the man who tried to escape through the window, right? So he was sent here, we know he went on an extremely strict diet, and he saved up on his lotions and oils. One day, he thought he was skinny enough, he thought the time was right. His two cellmates came back to their cell and they put their plan into action. So the man here stripped off all of his clothes, he lubricated himself up in the lotions and oils he did save up on. His friends kind of boosted him up like a cheerleader, and eventually, they were actually able to tear this weak frame out of the wall itself here. So feet first, he dropped out, he slowly slid his body through, and believe it or not, after about half an hour or so of doing so, popped his bald head through the size of a hole in the wall, he was able to slide down that same wall like Hans later. So, obviously the man's plan did not work, otherwise I'm probably not telling you the story. Man's plan would have worked had it not been for two key things here. Number one, for whatever reason, the man would choose to do this in broad daylight. Very easy to see the man escaping, sun's still outside, shining bright obviously. And number two, the fact that he was completely naked really did not help his case. Two innocent young ladies just so happened to be eating lunch on their porch that day. They looked over across the road, they saw a naked pair of butt cheeks hanging out of the window. They thought that was a little strange, so they called the jail and asked what the heck was going on. When the warden heard the lady's story, believe it or not, he actually hung up the phone on her the first time. He thought this was a prank phone call. He thought there was no way some naked guy just climbs through a window, escapes the jail just like that. Throughout the day, though, he got more and more phone calls about that same naked soapy guy. Eventually, he was just sick and tired of hearing about it. Called everybody back to their cells and did a head count. Wouldn't you guess it? One man was missing here. They would later find that same man, believe it or not, in his own home, hiding under his own bed. They drug him out, brought him back here for the rest of his 180-day sentence. Man was also sentenced to 1 more year in state jail for escaping this place. So, guys, some of you guys probably don't believe me, honestly. I don't blame you. I think there's no way a naked guy just climbs through a window like this. I'll tell you real quick, back in 1995 when the jail first shut down and it was first being reopened for tours, none other than the man himself in this story, believe it or not, he actually came back here, did this in his own free will, nobody drug him in here. He just came with the intention to tell us that if we gave him a free tour, he could pass on the story of how he escaped years ago. We gave him a tour, lived up to his expectations, passed on this lovely story that I'm now passing on to all of you lovely people. Wants all of you guys to know personally that he is in much better shape nowadays. He's eating much healthier again. Also, by any means, he is never going to be fit into a window this size again here. So, maybe no harm to think about that for you. Again, this is the solitary confinement section of the jail. You can be sent down to this level of the jail for a number of things. The most common of those at the time were starting riots, fights with other inmates, and stealing from the jail itself here. If you were sent down here, you were sent to one of the 16 cells, one person per cell, and your cell phone was always locked at the time. You were not allowed outside the cell, but you're not down here. If you were down here inside your cell, also they essentially only give you 3 items to survive with. You had a blanket to keep warm, a thin mask to lay and sleep on, and a bucket to weights. If you were sentenced down here, it's usually for short spurts of times, a couple of days at the most, but there have been instances where somebody can be sent down here for 1 to 2 weeks total. Nowadays, we took all the doors off, so like I said, when I'm done here, you're more than welcome to go inside the cells and check them out for yourselves. 2 cells down there on the left actually still have the doors attached. You guys can get an idea of what those were like on the cells at the time here. Also, all of the cells you guys are going to see down here are exactly identical to each other in every way, as it was being heated upstairs. Down here, it's a very small, confined area, 3 coal furnaces constantly running. So at the snap of a finger, as you can imagine, it would get very, very hot, very, very sticky, and very, very smelly down here. Throughout the day here, sometimes faint light would come through your cell window, but it was very small, very minuscule, and really did not make a difference for anybody else down here. So with that in mind, if you guys have absolutely any questions, let me know. If not, you guys can have a couple minutes to look around for yourselves.